record onto my computer. And what it is, I'll put this on YouTube. So for those who are now watching this recording, it's Wednesday, 19th September, 2018. And this is the first session of the September to December 2018 edition of the World Storytelling Institute's Storytelling Therapy course. And we are discussing therapy now. What happens in therapy? What are ways of doing therapy? And how does healing occur? So Bhavani Shankar, you have just mentioned that clients will tell, of course, in therapy, people tell their life stories.
Yeah.
You know, talk therapy is already a form of storytelling therapy because they are telling their life stories. And then what we can do with stories is that they can also tell their fantasies, their dreams. They can tell their favorite heroes from movies and epics. And as you were beginning to tell, they can talk about characters that are interesting to them. So, you know, there's a term narrative therapy, and that field has especially been developed in Australia, and that involves pretty much sticking to your life story, the events in your life story, and being sure to notice how one has been resilient, how one has coped with setbacks, with crises, with disappointments, and how one has kept oneself together and continued and persevered. So once you are aware of how you have coped in the past, you are more ready to face any problem in the future because you are aware of your coping mechanisms. So that is narrative therapy, but now there is also this field called transformative narrative therapy, which then includes also people's fantasies and examples from epics, from fairy tales, from movies, where they select characters or maybe modify their own memories of their own experiences to transform what happened into ways that they hope things will happen into the future. So, okay, so this is a beginning of discussing how therapy occurs, but I want to mention traditional psychoanalysis, as developed first by Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung. And the idea there is to revisit the scene of the crime or revisit the scene of one's creation, one's formation, how one was created as a child in the context of family life, and how one developed the thought patterns and the behavior patterns that, and perhaps the defense mechanisms and even self-destructive defense mechanisms that one has created. And the theory, the hope of psychoanalysis is that by going back there and becoming aware of how one was created, both the good and the bad, that gives one the ability to maybe come to terms with things, understand the painful aspects, and perhaps then modify who one is and how one responds to situations. Would anyone want to add anything to this sketch of psychoanalysis? You know, my sense is that most people coming for counseling or therapy today are not so interested in investigating their unconscious very much. You know, my sense is people they come with an immediate problem, like my boss is picking on me and I don't know how to handle it, and they want to make a plan for an immediate solution on a practical level. But part of this work also can involve looking at how one was formed and one's dream life, because one's dreams, give a lot of information about what one is going through and how one feels like it. Does anyone else want to say anything about psychoanalysis or therapy in general?
Yeah, I have one thing to actually discuss. So it is my personal understanding which I'm going to share. So what I would say is that you actually mentioned that there are lots of people who want immediate solution,
Mm.
and it's like that. But what I would say is there are certain tools which we can use for different types of problems. For example, a person needs an immediate solution. I've also done NLP, so there are certain NLP concepts which can be used for an immediate solution, but provided that immediate solution will not be sustained is what the person has to understand. So the only method or the only way is to go revisit what is the actual problem, heal the problem, and if you come back, that would be the actual, a position or whatever. So in general terms, like how we need to understand is, we have a fever, okay, and we go to a doctor. Okay, we go to an allopathy doctor, he gives you Dolo 650 or something. It is an immediate result giving your fever comes down. So what you need to see, why did you get the fever? And if you go revisit and see the actual problem.
Oh, hold on a second. Hold on. Everyone, please do make sure you're on mute if you're not speaking. Bhavani, there you go. Okay, please continue, Shankar.
So therapy is basically the same thing. Therapy is the process of healing, right? So you actually want something to be healed. So you are taking the client to a particular process. So that process is termed to be as a therapy, is my personal understanding.
Yes, but it's very hard to prove that revisiting the past is therapeutic. It's very hard to prove it. The theory is that when things happened, often they were out of one's control. But now one can go back in memory with one's therapist, with one's guide, with one's mentor, and understand it. And this time you are more in control of your emotions and your feelings about it all. So it seems that this sense of control is empowering. And but there's a lot of controversy and a lot of doubt about all this. And there are psychologists who say that revisiting traumas only traumatizes people further.
Yes.
So it's not a settled case.
Yes.
But I do have a love and interest of this journey into one's memory, into one's past, to discover how one was shaped. And I do believe it can lead to one being able to modify one's self and one's reactions to reality.
Yes.
But a basic principle in healing and therapy certainly is that it's not something that can be done to a person. It's not like giving a pill to a patient. The client has to do most of the work himself. You can take a horse to water, but you cannot make him drink.
We are just acting as a tool, or we are just helping them to actually understand. So we are just a bridge between the healing part and the problem. So
yes.
It is completely the client, or it's completely the patient who has to heal, and we are just helping them. And this
yes.
is clean. Yeah.
So we facilitate.
Yes, we facilitate. You're right.
Mm-hmm. And part of the healing process may just be remembering and talking about it and sharing it with the therapist. The warmth of a human relationship in itself is a healing aspect. Okay, there's a lot more to add, but maybe we should go on. Does anyone want to say anything else about healing or therapy before we go on? Or can we go? Okay, so now I'm going to mention the 7 steps of storytelling therapy. And by the way, the notes that I have for today's session, I'm going to send you the notes. As soon as this session is over, I'm going to send it to you as a PDF file, so you can review it at your leisure. And also, before the session is over, we'll do a warm-up where we'll go around and each person will share something about themselves. Once we get started in future sessions, at times people will go into separate rooms. One nice thing about Zoom is that we can make private rooms. So 2 people can go into a room and have a discussion and then come back to the main group. But we will do a warm-up sharing event also here today. But do let me mention the 7 steps, which I think you've all read, but I'll mention it again. And the first thing I want to say is that it's really based on the work of Carl Jung. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist, was together with Freud, a founder of psychoanalysis. But more than that, Carl Jung was the first psychologist really to use the arts, to use metaphors, to use symbols, to use images. And he very much believed and thought about the collective unconscious, not just the individual and the individual's family and parents, but the collective unconscious, which means your whole cultural background and how this has shaped a person. So he did many innovative things, including role-playing. He encouraged his clients 100 years ago, more than 100 years ago, to talk to characters in stories and then to talk as the character in the story. So to have inner dialogues between characters, and he encouraged his clients to personify aspects of their own selves as a character and speak to that character. So say I want to speak to my determined side, the side of me that is determined and that will persevere under any difficulty. So I might call him Mr. Perseverance, and I might decide what he looks like, he or she looks like. And then I might say, Mr. Perseverance, let's sit down, let's have a cup of coffee. I want to know more about you. I want to hear about your adventures and your hopes and dreams and fears. And so he encouraged people to dialogue with different aspects of themselves through role-playing, and also to draw pictures and to move and to sing, to use all of the different expressive mediums. So Carl Jung, really a lot of what we're doing goes back to Carl Jung. And so he especially used a 3-step method, which is the following. First, of course, the client tells her life story. Then he uses the word explication, and he was writing in the Swiss language, so I'm not sure if these translations are totally correct, but he says the first step is to, think about the story, think about the big turning points in a person's life story, the big decisions, the big conflicts, the big controversies, the big disappointments, the great joys, the outstanding moments in a life story. And, just make a note of the major things that have happened in the life story so far, and the frustrations, and what the client really wants to do next. And Jung also thought and wrote about archetypes, which are objects or characters that are typical Archetype means very typical. These are things that appear in people's experience all over the world. So, for example, the young woman, the mature woman, the old woman, the young man, the mature man, the old man. These are archetypal characters. The teacher, that he said, look out for these typical characters in your life and think about how they appear in your life together with the turning points. Okay, so this is the first step. It's a very relatively intellectual process, analytical. Then the next step that he recommended is to gather other stories that are somehow similar to your own experience. From movies, from things that happened to your brother, to things that happened to historical figures, to things that happened with characters in epics, any place. But to gather 5, 6, 7, and more stories that relate to your own experience. And you can find these just by remembering your favorite stories and your favorite movies, because they are your favorites, because they are about something that is interesting to you. You see, every story has an inner core about emotions, the character's emotions, her motivations, her relationships with other characters. And that's what the story is really about. The emotions, the relationships. It may be about cats and dogs. It may be about gods and goddesses. It may be about, beings from outer space. But the core of it is the emotions involved and the motivations and the relationships. So a story is always a model of the past and a possible model for the future. So whenever we tell a story, we are bringing up these emotions and situations of what has happened and what might happen. So, so anyway, Jung says, gather these other stories and bounce off of them. See how these other stories are similar to you and not similar to you. And this helps you situate yourself in your culture, because then you realize you're not the only person who has experienced these situations. There are folk tales, grandmother stories, there are proverbs that deal with situations that you've been through. So you gather all these other things. Then, number 4, change anything. Change elements of your own experience, change elements of what happened in the movie, just for fun. Add a character, change the ending. If anything was really disappointing or too sad or too violent, modify it, just for fun. And then, let's see, that's number 4. Along the way, you want to see if any metaphors come up for your own experience, like a seed that wants to grow. And then finally, speak to and as the characters. And finally, compose a story that will be inspirational to you. But actually, Jung does not recommend the composing a healing story. He doesn't mention that. That's my addition. So I'm afraid I've mixed up Jung and my own methods. Jung's 3 steps are: analyze the story. Number 2, compare it to other stories. And number 3, speak to and as the characters. So I am adding the metaphors and compose a story. And it's best if the client composes the story for herself. Okay, that's a long lecture. Does anyone have any questions or comments about these Jung's 3 steps and the additional steps that I have added to it? Any comments, questions?
Yeah, I have one thing. So
Go ahead.
I just want to know, when is the healing part actually, when will it happen?
The healing part in this model happens especially when the client, or if you're doing it for yourself, when you compose a healing story for yourself, or an inspirational story, or a guiding story. or a story that integrates the different parts of your thought and experience, puts them together, and gives you a kind of model to follow, that if you follow this model, you're going to live happily ever after. But along the way, there may be obstacles. Along the way, you may have to go deep down into the earth, which may be a metaphor for going deep down into yourself. But if you create a proper story, and then you tell it to yourself, you tell it to others, and you really embrace it and you love it, hopefully that story helps you heal, because the issues that a person has are brought up and put into play and then dealt with in that story. That's the theory. There are story therapists who will create a story for a client and give it to the client. But I feel very strongly that the client should take a lead role in composing a story for herself or himself.
Yes.
I don't believe in giving it to the client. Okay, why don't we do a little warm-up participation activity relating to all this. What is one quality that you have, a personality trait, that you enjoy about yourself? And all of your friends and all of your relatives, they know this about you. And they will smile and they will admire it in you. So if you would, tell us about one trait, one personality trait in the future you might want to personify this trait and have a cup of coffee and a conversation with this trait. But for now, just identify the trait. This is a trait, again, something that helps you do things, helps you succeed. It gives you a sense of satisfaction. When this trait is powerful and successful and dominant, you get things done in a good way. So, who will you play this activity with me? Yes. Go ahead, Shankar. Please tell us about a trait of yours.
Okay, so mine would be perseverance and endurance is what I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So I have an example that will actually make you a bit scared, but what I would say is I had my college, I completed my college and BCom, and I did my MBA. After BCom, I had about 2 months time. So I just want to enjoy 2 months time. So what I did, I take my vehicle, and from here I went to Bangalore, enjoyed for some time. From Bangalore to, then I thought like, let me go some more. I went up to Jammu Kashmir. So I was really shocked. And another thing is, since I went in a particular pace, I had time to understand the culture, the group inside. So here, if you ask for water, they'll just give you in a small glass. But if you go to Punjab Anas, they'll give you in a 1 liter big, it's called as Patiala glass. So that perseverance I had so much. And if I take a particular work or something, I will make sure that it's completed. So as usual, it's like a double-edged sword. Okay, you need to use it efficiently and effectively.
Mm-hmm.
So once I went there, and then I was like, oh my God, I have gone so much. So how am I going to go back? So, and then what happened was I literally tired, and from there I came by flight. My vehicle came in the lorry. So
wonderful. Okay, so that's perseverance, but also adventurousness.
Yes, adventurous.
And some risk taking.
Yes.
And a real cultural curiosity. Yes. And interest.
Yes.
A hunger for learning about different places and different people.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, next. And it's great that you gave an example. That's a good idea. Tell us the trait and give us an example about how this trait played out in a particular incident. Who's next?
Yeah, I am Bhavan Shankar.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sir. Normally, I will be spontaneously communicate whether it's a small group or big group.
Mhm.
So I get more appreciation in that. In the law, actually, in the recent past, in one of the tour that is arranged, many people after the tour is finally completed and everybody enjoyed. They were about to leave,
Mhm.
but I was a guest because many people were familiar with the group, but I was only the guest. However, I take a lead and I communicated how the tour was and what was the plus and how it can further be improved. And then everybody appreciated, and it was nice.
Wonderful. So you spontaneously communicate, and you like to explain and discuss concepts to make the concept very clear and useful.
Yeah.
Hmm?
Yeah.
Wonderful. That's a great quality. Okay, next, somebody, anybody?
I'll start.
Hmm.
Arina, you can go ahead.
No, please.
So I have a very I don't know how to, like, you know, in everyone's life there's a core circle in which hardly few people are there in that core circle. Okay, it could be your family, it could be your friends. Okay, but that's very close circle, close to your heart, and hardly few people are there. But apart from that core circle, there are many other people whom you actually talk to on a daily basis, but they don't belong to that particular circle. I initially, I mean, you know, the quality which I have is that the outer circle of my life, the people who fall into the outer circle of my life,
Mhm.
I forgive them very easily, because, you know, there's a thing which is attached to it. I mean, you know, when I was a kid, and, you know, I used to actually feel so bad when somebody used to hurt me. Okay,
Hmm.
fine. I mean, you know, that could be anyone, that could be a friend of mine, or anybody in the family, or anybody outsider also. If they used to say something, I used to get feel hurt, and I used to be very sad about it. My grandmother, I think, you know, I should she's not no now, but I should say that she was a true storyteller therapist, you know. Why? Because she narrated a story to me, which I really wanted, a very short story, which I would like to share with you all. And that made this quality in me of, you know, forgiving people. She said that there were two shops close to each other. In one shop, there was a goldsmith who used to prepare gold necklace.
Hmm.
Okay, in the other shop, there was a blacksmith who used to actually work with hammer on the iron and all. Now, in a shop which was where there was a blacksmith, okay, so the iron told to a gold that why, I mean, you know, I'm also bitten with the same, I'm a hammer, and even the gold says that even I'm also bitten with the same iron hammer, but I don't make that much of noise as much as what you make iron. So now this iron was actually, you know, very surprised and shocked with what gold said to the iron. And then suddenly the iron replied that, you know, you should always understand that gold is always being hit by iron, which is a different material which is hitting gold, so that you don't pinch that pain. But I'm being bitten by the iron itself. So I'm an iron bitten by iron. So that pain hurts a lot because I'm bitten by someone who belongs to the same category in which I fall.
Hmm.
That has been a, you know, really a change in my, I mean, that was a turning point in my life when I actually realized this thing, that a person should actually feel hurt and pain when the people in the core circle hurts you or say something.
Hmm.
But the people who falls apart from that core circle and they are saying something, it actually, you should start forgiving them, because they don't belong to that category of what you are into. So slightly a different thing, but yes, I would say that one quality about that, I don't keep things into my heart now anymore. I move forward with the positive sense. I feel, okay, fine, that person doesn't belong to that category, so maybe let him say, it doesn't matter at all a lot to me, and I forgive that person. That doesn't mean that I keep any hard feelings for that person, but I really forgive that person.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's what I would like to say.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that in general, you do not hold a grudge.
Exactly.
So you feel secure enough in yourself and happy enough with yourself, confident in yourself, that you are willing to forgive and tolerate to some extent
Yeah.
negative behavior from others,
Yeah.
especially those who are not so central to your life.
Exactly.
That's wonderful. Great. Okay, next, Rina.
Okay. So I feel I'm a very resilient person. I've gone through many ups and downs in life.
Hmm.
And, with all those experiences, I firmly believe that I'm able to withstand anything. I can hit the bottom and I'll bounce back. That is the confidence I have today that whatever life gives me, I'll be able to survive.
Wonderful. As mentioned, the field of narrative therapy especially looks at resilience, and they especially use a drawing activity to help people think about their coping and resilience abilities. They encourage the client or the trainee to draw a picture of a tree. And you all might try this. I'm hoping you'll keep a journal where you can write and also draw pictures. So you might try in your journal, draw a picture of a tree, especially with 3 elements to it. A root system, the roots, then the trunk, and then the branches with the leaves and flowers and fruits. So the roots are, of course, your past. And you can use words or you can just use little images because this is only for you. So somehow signify where you came from, both the people and the place, your parents, your grandparents, and especially what qualities you feel are in your roots. And so maybe you feel you got this resilience, especially from your mother or your grandfather. And so make a note. And then your trunk is yourself now, and the branches and leaves and flowers are the things that you are producing and that you hope to produce in the future. So it's basically the story of your life in one glance, if you do it. And especially make a note of the coping, the events that you've had to survive and cope about, and how you've coped. So then this visual, this picture, will remind you of how you were able to keep on going, keep growing, keep developing. That's called the tree of life, or the tree metaphor, the tree as self. It's a nice activity to do. It's not just about thinking about resiliency, because you can make a note of any of your aspects of yourself, and the history of and the derivation, how these things came to you in your feeling, in your thinking. How did you inherit it from the past? Okay, good. So that's resilience. Kavya? Up, you're on mute.
Audible?
Go ahead.
Yeah. I think for my age, I'm very intellectual.
Hmm.
I mean, there's a lot more depth to things that I see than most people my age do. So I think in a way it helps me because I think I understand relationships better, and why they are so important in your life. And it helps me have a better relationship with a lot more people, or the people who matter to me, and those who are not very close to me, which I find lacking in a lot of people my age. They tend not to respect the relationships they have with people. So yeah, I think that's one very good thing about it.
Wonderful. And there's also this term emotional intelligence. which I think you have a good deal of. Not just intellectual intelligence, but emotional intelligence. And it's great that you like depth, that you like to question and investigate and delve into phenomena. That is it's a pretty rare quality, as you say. You know, the world, the media is full of sensational, momentary images and sounds, and it takes a special person to go beyond that and not just be tossed back and forth by sensations, but to make it your business to delve and investigate whatever happens. Great, that's a great quality. Shubha, you haven't spoken yet. Okay, come off mute. Go ahead.
The quality which most people recognize in me is my patience and my good temper.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get angry very easily. Very rare that I get angry. And when I get angry, I just, instead of judging the other person and blaming the other person, I try to look within myself. What in me is making me angry? So that gives me lots of insights, and I start correcting myself. And that this quality has helped me grow, and that many people, the first thing they notice me is my calmness and patience.
Very good. But I hope you don't take it too far. I hope you don't let, people push you around.
Yeah, no.
Good.
Mostly it doesn't happen, but I know to come out without hurting them. I know to come out of that.
Wonderful. That's one of the primary soft skills, to be able to deal with it when somebody is rude or somebody is abusive, but to defend yourself, but not lash out. Many of us, myself included, we will, if we feel that there's been an injustice, we might lash out in an angry way. And that is not a good strategy, because the only thing anyone remembers is that I lashed out. They don't remember the original injustice. So soft skills is all about, this is called what is it called? Self-protection, that we should not be aggressive. Self-assertiveness training, that we should protect ourselves, but we should not lash out. So it sounds like you are good at that. Great. Okay, so now I have to think one of my traits. I'd like to think that I have each one of you. Your traits are so wonderful. I would like to think that I have some element of each one of your traits in me, but that's a cop-out. I think on the subject of delving, I discovered many years ago in the course of college, then MA, then PhD, that the way to really develop intellectually and creatively was to make sure that things could accumulate. And when I realized that, I made sure that I took good notes and numbered my notebook pages, or organized my computer files in such a way that everything was dated, and I could access it later. Because many people, they take notes, but it's like leaves that get blown by the wind, and they can't access it, they can't find it, and it just comes and goes. But I realized long ago that if you do a little bit every day, and you keep track of it, and you can access it, it will build. And then it becomes really something interesting and worthwhile. So I would say my trait that I admire in myself, or that I'm grateful for, is the ability to accumulate material and organize it so that so that I can access it. Okay, so everyone, please keep in mind these traits, because these traits might end up being a hero or heroine, or a helper to the hero or heroine in the inspirational or healing story you make up for yourself. There are basically only 2 course requirements in this course. You know, this is not a course for college credit, so I will suggest readings, but it's all optional. But the 2 basic things are within maybe about 5 or 6 weeks, the first half of the course, try to come up with some metaphors for aspects of yourself, or aspects of what you think about, and try to come up with a story that is inspirational or healing to you. And, you know, we are here to help you, but primarily you're going to make it up for yourself. You know, now you can all, you know, meet each other. If you can Zoom with each other, Zoom, you can do a 2-way conversation for free. You don't have to even, you know, buy a package. You will have your email IDs, and if you want, you can have conversations amongst yourselves during the week, or you can just do it on your own. But do come up with a story that is that will facilitate your own development. And it either can be in terms of a problem, or overcoming a block, or just development, helping the seed to grow. Okay? And I want to mention this term that Jung used, individuation, which is about becoming a mature individual, in the sense of understanding the different aspects of oneself, bringing them up into consciousness, into, Hema.
Hi.
Hello.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you for joining. And we've recorded most of the session, so you'll be able to see the recording, but thank you for getting here.
Thank you.
Yes. So I'm, what was I just saying now about bringing these aspects up? Oh, yes. And Jung's concept of becoming a mature individual. There are 2 aspects of it. One is becoming aware of the different parts of yourself, bringing them up into consciousness, maybe giving them symbolic form, personifying them as characters and letting them interact with each other or go on adventures together. And the other is integrating yourself with the universe, with the cosmos, with the divine, with, you know, however you conceive of the divine, the universe, the cosmos. The cosmos is a kind of mystical term which tries to sidestep the issue of whether or not one believes in God. One can say the cosmos, and it sort of leaves open whether or not you believe there's a divine consciousness in the universe. So whether or not you believe, Jung felt, and I agree, that part of achieving mental wellness and emotional wellness is getting a sense of where one fits in to the universe. And that includes where one fits into the flow of history and the great cosmic plan, if there is one. So as you're composing, you know, I'll give you a quick example of a wonderful healing story that a participant in this course composed. Actually, her client composed it last year. And I just give this as an example of a story that was used to, it seems to me, compensate for tragic circumstances and give the client a feeling of connection with her community and with the universe. This person who composed this story, her mother was depressed. as she was growing up, and for long periods of time, her mother would not come out of her room. And and eventually I think the mother ended up in a mental hospital. So the mother was not available, both emotionally and physically. The mother was often not available. So this girl was on her own. She had a younger brother, but she missed her mother. And the girl had a pet rabbit, a white rabbit at some point, and she loved her pet rabbit. But one day the rabbit was killed by a dog. And the girl found this rabbit, a bloody mess. Of course, the girl cried, but then she pulled herself together and picked up the body of the rabbit and buried the rabbit. She dug a hole, and I think alone, maybe with her brother as a witness, she buried the rabbit and conducted a little memorial and funeral for the rabbit. But the client remembered this as a powerful thing that she had done, even as a 9-year-old girl. Then later, this girl wrote a letter to a school asking to be admitted, even though she didn't have the money for the school. She knew this boarding school admitted some charity cases, giving full scholarship, and she knew it. Her father had been a gardener at this school. And this girl, she loved stories. She read a lot of fairy tales, and she wrote well, and she wrote a letter, and the school admitted her. And so she attended this fine school. This is in the USA, on the East Coast. So that was the second thing that this client did, where she was strong, and she helped her own life by not just being a victim, but by doing something. Okay, so then eventually she went off to college, and she had different adventures. She did this, she did that, and now she's working actually in a. She's not really a psychologist, but she works in a home for runaway children, and helps the children try to get their lives together. But so that's the life story of this person. Now I'm going to tell you the healing story that she made up for herself. In the story, there's a young woman who is standing at the beach, and she sees a ship coming towards the shore, and a small boat comes out of the ship, and on the small boat there are a few senior women with long silver hair, and these women have beautiful long clothing on them, rich dark colors, and some beautiful jewelry. And these women come to the shore and greet the young woman, and these senior women say, "We've been watching you. We've been watching over you, and we're delighted that you've grown into a strong young woman. Why don't you come with us? We are healers. We use plants, we make medicines, and we help people with nature." And then they showed her a ring, and they gave her a ring that had the image of a rabbit on it. And this character knew that this was the rabbit that she had buried many years ago. And then they all looked up at the moon. I guess it was nighttime, or it had become nighttime, and the same image of the rabbit was on the moon. So the senior woman said, we are the healing women of the rabbit. We love this rabbit. She is not our goddess, but she is our symbol. So we want to invite you to come with us on this ship. You can come back later. You can come back anytime, but we want to invite you to join our tribe, the healing women of the white rabbit. So the character went with the women on the ship. So I was so touched by this healing story, because as I say, it felt to me that the person who composed it had compensated for the loss of her mother and the loss of her rabbit by imagining a community of women that were watching over her and were connected with nature, and this rabbit was watching over everything. Do you get it? Do you like it? Do you feel it? It's a story that situates the character and the client in the universe. She's not just alone, and she's not just with other human beings, but she's also with the rabbit spirit, which is on the moon and on the ring. So I give that as an example. Many people come up with healing stories that are much simpler, that are just, set a model of what they want to do next. And then, that story is inspirational to them. So that's okay too. But to me, the highest and deepest form of a healing story is something that helps integrate and compensate in this way. Okay, so it's 9:30. As I say, as soon as we hang up, I'm going to send my notes from today's session, and then we'll go forward. Does anyone have any comments or questions about anything?
Like how you ended with the rabbit on the moon. Sometimes we also feel like anything which is very much like having an implication or which is very impressive. Wherever you see the moon, sometimes it happens to be like that. The same shape happens to be there.
Mm-hmm.
It happens like that. Is it something related to the deeper thoughts of the mind?
Yes. And it's, we like to feel that there is somehow love or justice in the universe. Whether or not we believe in God or goddess, we like to feel, in this larger sense that that good behavior will be rewarded, bad behavior will be punished, and that somehow we are safe and watched over. So, you can call this a childish fantasy, but it is a deep human need. And I think for many of us, our vision of the universe involves some of this sense of destiny, fate, the divine, that is part of this protective feeling that we like to have.
It's something like a calling.
Say it again.
Calling. Say it a calling.
It's a calling. It's a vision. Yes. Any other thoughts, comments, questions? Oh, I was saying the course structure. So so in the first half, people will develop these stories for themselves, with maybe your helpful trait as a character, and then in the second part, try to find somebody who will volunteer to be your client, and have at least 3 sessions with them, and go through these 7 steps with them. Listen to their life story, and help them think about it, help them find other stories, help them develop it, and finally help them come up with a story that is inspirational or healing or integrational for them. So next week we will have the finalized group. Next week we will start telling our life stories to each other, a 10-minute version. And we'll do it in a way that, whenever I do sessions in the business world, I encourage people to, when they tell their life stories, tell about what you love to do and how you discovered that, how you developed it. You can bring your emotions and your family relationships into it as much as you want. but let it center on your intellectual, professional, creative development. So we will tell these life stories to each other, and it won't happen all in one session. Usually maybe 2 or 3 will happen in a session, because each one will take at least 10 minutes. And we will help each other come up with metaphors for our experience. Along the way, we will discuss why bother with metaphors? What is the value? What is the point of metaphors? There are many good answers, which we'll explore. So that's it. The first half is developing our own life stories, and then the second half, I'm hoping each participant would give a presentation near the end on what happened with your client, and if your client did indeed come up with your help, come up with a healing story for herself. And also, I also mentioned that along the way, people are invited to give a presentation about any subject in psychology that might be interesting for us all to hear about, and how that topic relates to what we're doing. Okay?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Do you have any assignments for this week? Any work?
Well, not really. I'll send this. I'll send this outline of notes. I suggest take a look at this website, Story the Future. It is so amazing, all the work that is being done in this field. I'm telling you, there are like 55 speakers that are. It's all online. Where they're being interviewed, they're giving talks. I don't know if they're leading workshops like this, but it's such an eye-opener to see all the work that's going on. Unfortunately, I have not been invited to participate in that, but I certainly know a number of the people who are. So take a look at that website. I think you've all seen the reading list. Maybe I'll suggest one little, like 3 or 4 page essay to read from that list. But the assignment is to start thinking about your life story. You can journal it and start thinking about what are the outstanding parts of it, the turning points, the joys, the frustrations, and how in transformative, whatever transformative narrative therapy is, you're going to practice it on yourself. You're going to transform yourself and your life in play, in art, and hopefully that will influence your real life. See, play, we study play in anthropology. There's a field, the anthropology of play, and the basic idea is that it's a model of the past and a model for the future. I said it before. A story is one type of play. So we will practice here transformative story work, to transform our own lives. Okay?
Eric, I haven't studied anything about psychology other than my teacher training. So will that be sufficient to carry on with this course?
Yes, it's fine. As I say, if at any time you're not comfortable or you're not interested in the psychology and the healing aspect, just think of it in terms of personality development aspect. You're coaching, you're mentoring, you're helping yourself and others become themselves and develop themselves. You don't need a degree to develop yourself.
Okay.
And by the way, are you using a mobile phone?
Yeah, I've used the mobile phone.
But your picture and your sound is very clear.
Okay.
So you have a very good internet connection. You know, usually I recommend people use laptop computers, but you're okay with that phone. I would suggest, if you can, stabilize it in the future if you can, so you don't have to hold it all the time.
Okay.
But you're fine with that phone. The only problem tonight was Musami, and I'm sure I'm not pronouncing her name right. But she was with us at the beginning, but she dropped out. We'll try to see if she can improve her internet connection. Does anyone else have any questions, comments, observations? Okay, well, now I'm going to stop the recording. Just a second.